Today I learned in 1995, France found a man guilty of killing a teen girl, but he was able to avoid sentencing by hiding out in Germany. In 2009, the victim's father hired a team to kidnap the killer out of Germany and dump him in front of a French courthouse. It worked, and he is now serving 15 years.
Removed. The father was later condemned to 1 year suspended for ordering the kidnapping. Batman has no jurisdiction. 2 years later, Krombach pleaded guilty in a German court to drugging and raping a 16-year-old girl in his office. He was given a 12-year suspended sentence and banned from practicing. Wow, WTF Germany, what justifies that this boss is treated like a national treasure and sheltered from repercussions of his hideous crimes? Edit. To all of you replying that 16 is the legal age of consent in Germany, I believe the keyword here is consent. Should have gone to Bratislava. It's nowhere near Berlin.
Today I learned that Super Mario is named after real-life businessman Mario Segale, who was renting out a warehouse to Nintendo. After Nintendo fell far behind on rent, Segale did not evict them but gave them a second chance to come up with the money. Nintendo succeeded and named their main character after him.
Dude hated turtles. And Kirby is named after John Kirby, who successfully defended Nintendo against Universal Studios over the copyrightability of the character of Donkey Kong in 1984. The world would be a much different place if not for this man. For his part, Segale was largely reticent about the subject, quipping to the Seattle Times in a rare interview in 1993. "You might say I'm still waiting for my royalty checks. Mamma mia, where area the coins? Name Mario, last name Segale. Damn."
Today I learned that Sir Christopher Lee, who played Saruman in The Lord of the Rings, read the trilogy every year from the year it was published to his death in 2015. He was also the only member of the cast and crew ever to have met J.R.R. Tolkien himself.
I almost always forget he died a few years ago. It makes me sad every time I remember. It's a shame the movie cut the Scouring of the Shire so Lee's incredible range could really shine. He was such an awesome and wholesome man. Did you know he voice acted himself in at least 4 languages and spoke 12 languages fluently? And here I am unable to finish 1 regular book a year. He wanted so badly to play Gandalf. Instead he got Saruman, and he nailed it. I hope his soul is happy with that outcome. Bless you. 2PJ.
Today I learned that when Diogenes, the ancient Greek philosopher, noticed a prostitute's son throwing rocks at a crowd, he said, "Careful, son, don't hit your father."
This is the same guy who said, "What I like to drink most is wine that belongs to other people." Diogenes. Spare change. Guy. Persuade me. Diogenes. If I could have persuaded you, I would have persuaded you to hang yourself. LMAO. Diogenes started the whole KYS thing. These historical quips are cool and all, but every time I read them I can't help but think about how they get recorded. I just imagine him immediately heading home after saying it, thinking, "Oh damn, that was a good one. Better write it down before I forget." A lot of what you'll find amongst the comments are parables attributed to Diogenes. The bottom line is the cynics didn't record their work. They lived it. So take the quotes with a grain of salt. Because if you tried to praise Diogenes, he'd probably just poop on your porch. Diogenes was pretty savage.
Today I learned that sodium citrate is the secret ingredient to make any cheese into smooth, creamy nacho cheese sauce. Coincidentally, sodium citrate's chemical formula is sodium citrate. Nacho.
It's also used in blood sample tubes for when you don't want it to clot. So what the hell am I doing using flour, butter, and milk to make a bechamel, then dumping shredded sharp cheddar in? To be fair, if you remove the subscript from most organic sodium salts, it'll spell out nacho. Source: M Chemist. NNNAAACCCCCCHHHHHHHO edit. Holy tortilla, gold. You're too generous. Sodium formate has the formula NaCO2 and is a somewhat poisonous chemical which should not be added to cheese.
Today I learned that a man named Oswald can be heard only at embankment station Sating Mindthe Gap. In 2012 they were planning on changing all voiceovers but decided not to at the station when Oswald's wife told them that he had passed away in 2007. She loved listening to him when on the way to work.
When I was a little kid, my dad worked at a public library. He recorded that the library will be closing in 10 minutes announcements on a tape. We moved away soon after, only to return for a visit 11 years later. We stopped in near closing time to hear a much less clear but familiar voice. They were still using the same tape. Edit. Grammar. E2. Oh man. My first guild, and I haven't been on Reddit for a week and missed the whole thing. P. It was replaced by a new recording. The one heard at all other stations other than Embankment. His widow was upset and asked staff why it had changed, as she regularly would let a few trains go by just to listen to his voice when she was having a bad day. After hearing about it, Transport for London reinstated it so she could hear it on her commute daily. Myself and 2 other engineers loaded this message onto the PA router mentioned. The original message was actually on EEPROM on our old PA equipment, no longer used. Rather than tape, we had to find the ancient spares, fashion some cables up to strip the audio, record it, then encode it so the new PA firmware could store it before uploading it. What a year! When I was having a bad day at university, I would ride the Piccadilly line so I could hear. This is a Piccadilly line train to Cockfosters.
Today I learned that there is a monument in Georgia which gives instructions in 8 languages on how to rebuild society after an unknown apocalyptic event, whilst also functioning as a compass, calendar and clock.
These monoliths are basically Rosetta Stones, built so that 4,000 years from now our dead languages can be decoded. Also note that it's unknown who built it. It's rumored that Ted Turner was the man behind it, but no one has been able to confirm. I keep on thinking in the back of my mind that we should create something called the Square One Archive, which in multiple languages gives guides on how to recreate every major invention from its key natural materials, ordered in such a way where every invention needed for its construction precedes it. I've been there a few times. It's pretty cool. Usually there's signs of vandalism on parts of the stones. Fun fact, there's a misspelling in one of the Sanskrit inscriptions.
Today I learned, according to Matt Groening, Fox was never supportive of Futurama, as they moved the show around from time slot to time slot and predictably for 4 years, which resulted in poor ratings and its cancellation in 2003. This move left many Futurama fans and production crew shocked and angry. Good news, everyone. Those asinine morons who cancelled us were themselves fired for incompetence. In the show, they openly made fun of Fox for being dipshits. They did exactly the same thing to Firefly because they didn't like it. Also aired the episodes in the wrong order. The pilot was aired second, and to King of the Hill because they needed to cancel something to make space for the Cleveland show. The creators' commentary for this show is phenomenal and I recommend listening to them if you're looking for a new spin on your next Futurama marathon. The commentary doesn't focus just about the show but everything involved with it, including the network politics. Matt G. David X, and typically John DiMaggio with Billy West do the commentary and they're great. Fox is the worst at this, but it happens with a lot of shows. For example, NBC aired the episodes of Powerless out of order so the storyline didn't make sense. At this point, I wait until a series is established before I bother watching it. But even then it's not a guarantee it won't get unexpectedly cancelled. Today I learned that the Sony PlayStation was never meant to be a product. It was intended to be a new console that would play exclusively Nintendo games on CDs. Instead, Nintendo backed out of the deal at the last minute. Sony went ahead and launched what would become the most successful console of all time.
Fun fact: some of the early models of the original PlayStation run were sought after by audiophiles as CD players. Their DAC was far superior to that of most home market CD players at the time. I actually had one of the coveted models, a wedding gift from my wife, and once played it side by side with my 6-disc changer hooked to my Sony receiver. And guys, I gotta say, I could hear no freaking difference at all. Perhaps the most bizarre part of this classic story is that the PlayStation actually thrived. 3DO failed, Sega CD failed, CDI failed, Saturn struggled, but PlayStation, a console by that company who made your VCR and Discman, managed to get companies like Konami, Squaresoft and Namco to make exclusive games for them within the first year. How in the blazing frick did Sony pull that off and manage to outsell their competitors who were seasoned veterans with huge followings? Nintendo gave Sony their word they were still together on the deal, but quietly was talking to Philips, which later became the CDI. Sony made the announcement they were partnering with Nintendo. Nintendo backed out and made Sony angry. They were going to scrap it until an employee, forget the name, suggested they do the system themselves. President of Sony was angry with Nintendo and basically said, "Do it." Quote, PlayStation was born. Edit. The CDI was already out at this time. My mistake. Fun fact: Nintendo continued that CD-based game console with Philips. The result was the CDI, known for pretty much nothing except the infamously bad Zelda 400 first games. Isn't the PS2 the most successful? Edit. Yeah, I get it. At the time. But spiritually, isn't the greatest of all time the Gizmondo?